This is my research inquiry proposal. So to begin, let's start with some vocab that might be helpful. Cognition is the mental action or progress of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the five senses. Executive functions are then the higher level cognitive skills used to coordinate abilities and behaviors. So kind of what allows us to use gestures, to speak, and understand like relationships and all that sort of things. The next things are expressive communication, which is essentially the output of language, whether that be in any kind of language, including nonverbal. There we go. Receptive communication is the input of language. So it's how we understand people talking to us, people using their bodies to gesture towards things, and that sort of thing. Syntax is the arrangement of words and phrases to create well-formed sentences. Effective expression is clear and concise speech and communication. That can be in any language. And then lexicon, in my context, is the total vocabulary of a person. So my mentor is Dr. Audra Sterling. She works at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and she works in the Communication Sciences and Disorders Department. And she has a specialty in developmental disabilities, and she's conducted many studies with many students. My research problem is that children with Down syndrome can experience unique challenges related to speech, development, and impaired motor functions. And this can impact the quality of the education that they receive. So then my research question is, does incorporating American Sign Language in early childhood education improve children with Down syndrome's communication capabilities compared to those not taught sign language? So the importance of this is that it can help the language delay. Children with Down syndrome experience a language delay, particularly in their expressive communication, and this can make it very difficult for them to communicate their needs. Going on to, it can help with communication, and also special education, as when you can communicate better, your quality of education also improves, which is something very important, and it can help lead to people with Down syndrome being able to go further in their education and in general being more successful. So my key sources I used were Seeing Language, the Effect of Sign Language on Vocabulary Development in Young Hearing Children by Marilyn Daniels. This source focused a lot on how sign language helps with language development. So we talked a lot about how receptive language and effective language is very different in sign language, as well as how syntax is different, but how it can kind of correlate into typical English spoken language. So that was very interesting. My next source was Nonverbal Communication Skills in Down Syndrome Children by Mundy et al. This source really focused on how speech is very different for children with Down syndrome, and that was a very interesting point about how it's they're a lot better at the receptive communication rather than effective. So like gestures and things are very important. My third important source was Sign Language as a Communication Prosthesis for Language Impaired Children by Konstantin Reyes. This source was very interesting, as well as it focused a lot on how sign language can help children who have issues with communication. It's very similar to the study I would like to conduct. However, it focused on children with autism, with Down syndrome was included but not primary focus, and children who generally have a hard time with understanding language or have like dyslexia, things like that. So the research gap was children with Down syndrome. Lots of studies have been conducted on kids with developmental disabilities and using sign language to help combat that, but no study has particularly focused on children with Down syndrome. So some more sources that were important was Seeing Language again, nonverbal communication skills in Down syndrome again, Sign Language as a Communication Prosthesis again, but Emergent Literary Practices and Support for Children with Disabilities by McDonald et al. Was also very important, as it helped me garner a better understanding of what communication therapy looks like for children with Down syndrome now. So I was able to kind of see what more of a gap American Sign Language could fill in that. And then my research method I plan on using is a mixed method approach with a questionnaire and then correlational research. The questionnaire I have produced comes from Language Milestones, which was a document mentioned in school functioning in students with Down syndrome, speech development in children, how gesture promotes language throughout childhood, and many other ones I found. This document was essentially a bunch of sentences. I just converted them to questions. And then with my correlational research, the two groups I'm going to study are a group that has, like, a group of parents that has used American Sign Language with their children, and then a group that has not used American Sign Language with their children. Some sample questions to kind of make the questionnaire a little bit easier to understand was, the original sentence was, your baby babbles using their hands or their voice, and it's instead, does your baby babble? Or does your baby use exclamatory expressions like uh-oh, no, etc.? Or does your baby say or sign their full name on request? And that's focusing on the effective communication. And the receptive communication questions include, does your baby recognize their own name? Does your baby point to pictures mentioned on a page? Or does your baby understand simple commands like come here, give it to me, or sit down? And then to expand on my participants, all the groups I plan on finding the parents from are on Facebook. There's lots and lots of groups for children, for parents of children with Down syndrome, and some of them have used American Sign Language, so it's been pretty easy to find them. And then I am exempt from an IRB. I double checked that with my mentor as well, because all things are going to be anonymous, no names are included. The only identifying question would be whether you have used American Sign Language with your child or not. And all people are given full autonomy on any questions. They are open to be exempt from any questions they deem uncomfortable, as it can be a little uncomfortable of a subject. So my timeline in December, I've already started sending out questionnaires to my participants, which my mentor really has helped me with that. I have another Zoom call with my mentor scheduled for the 18th, I believe. And then in class, obviously, literature review drafting. In January, I plan on grading the questionnaires and interpreting the data. And if I'm not getting enough data, I plan to send out more, because I have some backup groups that I don't particularly think will give me the best results, but they're there in case. And continue on my literature review. And then this, I want to continue to interpret data if I have any last ones, organize my data better in February, and ensure that my data kind of connects back to my hypothesis, because if not, I might have to reword some things for my literature review, and have another Zoom call. And then drafting research paper goes on in March. The end.
I have one little thing.
Yes.
I personally would find it easier to follow if you did your definitions after your problem statement.
Okay.
Because you kind of jumped in and I'm like, oh, we're defining before. So that's a personal thing. I don't know if others would disagree, and you can do what you
I
want.
felt like I was talking a lot.
But otherwise I have nothing.
Okay.
That's the only thing I would say.
It's interesting. I like having the definitions early.
Well, I'm not saying
But-
that early, that was the first thing.
Yeah.
For me, that was a
Yeah,
little bit.
so
But
interesting.
I feel like I
Yeah.
could have had a little bit more of an
I
introduction.
feel a little
Like introduce the topic and then say, in
Yeah.
order to understand my
Yeah.
topic, these are the terms you'll need. They lead to my problem or whatever. Yeah.
Mhm. I'll definitely adjust that.
Comments, concerns, questions?
So, are you meeting with these kids at all? You're
No, I'm not having any communication with any of the kids. All that's done through the parents. That's it.
Sounds again like your mentor has been very helpful.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's great.
She was really helpful.
All right. Looks like we're good to go. Oh.